Coach, you guys won 3 consecutive games here, all 3 conference games, so a good start in GNAC play. What have you seen in these last 3 games?
Improvement. We finally can get outside, which is kind of a big bump to our program. Playing some games on the big field, big surface definitely helps to get our offense a little more spaced out, our defense, get their ones and twos, their slide package together. Being inside Shapiro, we always look good, but we don't play games inside Shapiro. So, being outside is kind of of course, we're still waiting for our practice fields. That's kind of still a little bit of a deterrent, but we're happy to have as much time as we can outside, especially if it's on the road at some pretty nice facilities.
What is it like to be inside Shapiro? I imagine it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. Obviously, it's not outside, but it certainly is bigger and has more space than the gym, which a lot of places are relegated to. So kind of talk about what that's been like.
Shapiro's great. I think because it's constantly 80 degrees and sunny in there, no complaints out of that. I think the size of the space is definitely a little restricting, but not completely. The surface for lacrosse is different. Very hard to pick up ground balls in there. It becomes a little bit slick at times with some moisture, so sometimes it's not true bounce off the floor or a real true surface to our normal playing conditions. But we struggle with ground balls sometimes because it's like pushing a hockey puck across the ice. There's nothing to really get the stick underneath. But for what it's worth, we are much better off than a lot of other facilities and universities.
Now, as we said, 3-game win streak, all 3 coming in conference games. Prior to that, you dropped 3 straight to start the year, including some pretty good programs. Plattsburgh is a very strong program, and they handed it to you guys pretty good early in the year. But what did those early games do for you? Obviously, you kind of test yourself in those early games, see what you got first games outside, and it appears to have certainly paid off here in the last 3.
Oh, yeah. Anytime the non-league games that we try to play before our regular season, we play out. So those 3 programs in particular all finished number 1, number 2, or number 3 in their league last year. Plattsburgh right now is ranked top 20 in the nation. That wasn't so when we played them, but afterwards they knocked off a pretty good team. They're all well-established programs, to put it that way. So for us, knowing some of the limitations with being inside and not really having everything put together by those first 3 games, it's our challenge to take as much as we can out of those games, reassess what we're doing, show game film, reteach, and then that's where we get the results that we do in the last 3 games in terms of how beneficial was playing up to those teams who can really show us what we need to work on.
Even with those teams that you've played up against, you've more ground balls than your opponents, higher face-off percentage than your opponents, and you guys are getting 36 shots a game. Statistically, are you happy when you look at those numbers? With where you guys are right now? I
think statistics are a great way to look at our progress. We're always going to be the Cadets. We are a scrappy team. That's kind of where we hang our hat at the end of the day. Is how did we do in ground balls, generating shots, playing good pressure defense. Defensively, we don't have as many statistics, but we held our own against all 3 of those programs. We did. It was really bringing the offense more up to speed, to have multiple looks, to adapt to different defenses, and that takes time. So I still consider us a very young program. I mean, we've got 4 years, 4 seasons under our belt, this being our 5th, but with the recruiting classes that we bring in, each year we're trying to progress what we do here. So it's almost like a brand new system almost every year because we take what we've built on and now make it a little bit more aggressive, a little bit higher caliber, so that at the end of our season we're playing a completely different brand of ball than we have the year before. Now I think maybe a year or 2, maybe at the end of this season, we will be able to take a top 20 team and really have a great opportunity to play some great lacrosse against them. And that's our expectation this year. But again, we'll see where we get to in another month from now in terms of running very high-end offense and good defense to be ready for a top 20 matchup again.
Speaking of offense, Ian Mendoza's off to a real hot start. He certainly doesn't appear to have, to get not slow out of the box going outside for the first time. 15 goals. Seth Fuller's got 9. What are you seeing from those 2 players in particular on the offensive end? They've really kind of been your catalyst.
Yeah, they're looking for each other. We've also thought long and hard about how to put good returning players into a system. I think both those guys get scouted pretty hard, and defenses really try to shut them down. But they do a good job in terms of understanding that challenge and how to pick and choose their opportunities to go to cage, to score, as well as when it's time to settle it down, let somebody else score the goals. And it's been a nice compliment where I think the very first game we played down there at UMass Dartmouth, we tended to look for Ian Mendoza to do everything for us, and now that role has really morphed into, hey, how can we use the attention that he draws from the defense to help benefit the other 6 to 8 offensive players at any time, to open up them for looks and goals. And right now we're starting to build our freshmen have tallied points. We've got four freshmen getting some serious playing time on our offense this year, and each of them has scored their first collegiate goal in these first 6 games, which is pretty interesting for a freshman class. So we hope that trend continues and it takes pressure off some of those guys you mentioned. But when it comes down to winning games, the nitty-gritty, I think those guys are up for the task as well.
Now, as is the case in most sports, your offense can be good, your defense can be good, but you got to have someone there in the back end to kind of anchor it for you.
Yep.
And Mark Paradiso, GNAC Goalie of the Week, and this past week has certainly been that guy for you guys. Speak about him if you could, real quick.
Yeah, Mark is kind of one of those very vocal leaders. You can gauge the pulse of the team just by listening to what's going on the bus ride down, and it's usually Mark getting these guys fired up. Mark is what we say a real good game mentality. He comes ready to play and perform. He holds himself to a high level. Mark also will be very quick to say, my fault. That shot, I can handle that shot. And that gives confidence to our defense. Our defense likes playing for a guy like that, especially when we break down and Mark's asked to make a save and he consistently does it. And he's been very solid, I think, for these 3 years. And even his freshman year, when he got good playing time, he still held himself to that same standard of, it's my job to help make this defense look good. He's been very, I would say, very unselfish in that role too, and really gives credit back to the team in terms of his performance. So Mark, just like a typical Norwich student athlete, very much a team-oriented player, and his success is based upon how well the rest of the team rallies around, his energy and his leadership.
All right, Coach. Thanks a lot for joining us, and best of luck here as the season continues.
Go Cadets!